Welcome to the Last Beer Show. All right, I'm hitting record.
You come and go.
Jason.
You come and go. Hey.
What are you doing, man?
Hey, good to see you.
I ran out of beer right before we hit record, so I'm a little.
We just opened up a beer. What did we open?
Arches Brewing. It's called Queen's Weiss. It's a heavy Weissen, 5.2. Banana, clove, crispy, dry. It's good. Not dead on style, character-wise, as you would expect from, say, Franzenskanner or some more traditional heavy Weizen beer from the region of origin. But you know what? For a U.S. brewery,
Definitely smells yeasty.
pretty damn close.
Very yeasty.
It's good, yeah.
Arches is a unique brewer in that they do a lot of classic styles, right? A lot of lagers and
Yeah, a lot of classic European styles, and they're really into lagering, so that'll be nice as lager is, trend. And they're pretty close to us. I know if anybody wants some, I'm willing to talk trade. I can get it ready. I can get plenty of it, and it's good.
I don't know. I just tasted it, and it tastes pretty classic Hefeweizen to me. It tastes
pretty
bananas
solid, right?
and bread and like that kind of.
Yeah.
It tastes pretty classic Hefeweizen.
I'm telling you.
It actually tastes more classic Hefeweizen than many of the others I've had in the area, actually. So good job, Arches Brewing.
Yeah, it's excellent.
And then before that,
What did we start with? When
Before
we
that,
were,
we had Bearded Iris.
We were pre-gaming with our...
Bearded Iris's Color Wheel, which is their blueberry lactose double IPA. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later.
Oh, I see the color wheel on the label.
The Color Wheel.
And I can tell you that it rings of the future.
Yes, it does. I see the future.
You may. So, how was your month anyway?
You know, my month was pretty good.
Drop it on me.
I cannot complain. Obviously, we had snow and ice.
I know we never have snow and ice. That was so fun. Except for being home for 2 days with, household going absolutely crazy with kids and
probably sick, and
my wife was sick.
Yeah,
that sucked. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that one.
Yeah, so a mixture of the weather and brewery stuff. Obviously, breweries are a little bit slower this time of the year, so it's a good time.
Slow season. You get to clean the floor, clean the pipes, clean the drains.
Do some brainstorming for the following year.
Plan.
Mm-hmm. Yep, which we've certainly done a lot of at the brewery. And then, of course, around here, we've participated and or hosted a ton of bottle shares. Had a big bottle share on Saturday.
Right.
And then we had one on Sunday for the big game. The big sports ball game that was the Patriots and the
Jaguars.
You
mean not the NFC and AFC championship games? You mean just
the Eagles and
for the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Getting ready. You haven't watched Super Bowl yet.
Yeah, right. It was the Eagles and
so when this drops, you're still going to be 3 or 4 days away.
Yeah.
Before pregame.
Yeah. So spoiler alert. I think the Eagles won that game. Although I'm not.
I don't think you know how time works.
No.
Really?
No, I mean the Eagles won the game that was this past.
Oh, if you listen to it on the 5th.
Right, exactly. I don't know who will win the Super Bowl. I have no idea.
I know who I want to win, and it's probably the opposite of you. And
I know exactly who you want to win. The deflated balls.
Well, you're a college football fan.
I'm a college football. I don't even watch pro football.
But it's weird when they watch pros, college football fans. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like when someone from your division or your conference.
Speaking for all college football fans.
Blanket statement city.
Yeah,
coming right at you. All over your face.
Yeah.
This is a difference I've noticed with college football fans from pro football fans. And this isn't a sports show, so I will keep it brief. Is that college football fans, when their team loses, but another team in their division or their conference advances to important games, bowl games, championship opportunities, they root for the team in their division.
Correct.
Right? In pro sports, it's the exact opposite. You want nothing but the worst to happen to your biggest competitors in your division, in your conference. Right? So, like, if I'm from Massachusetts, I'm a big Patriots fan, and if they weren't in it, I would be all about the Eagles if the Jacksonville Jaguars were in us right now. I would want nothing but the worst things to happen to the Jaguars.
So, hence another reason why college football is just better than pro football.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, the trouble with the college game is that it's full of holes, and you just exploit the kid who's going to be selling insurance next year.
Come on, did you not?
That's all they do is run at the kid that's going to be selling insurance next year. How hard is that?
Come on, that last game of the season was one of the best football games ever played.
It was a good football. It's very talking about blanket statement
to watch as somebody watching on the other side of a TV. It was pretty remarkable.
It was a fun game. It was a fun game to watch.
So yes, I have no idea, but we had a big bottle share here that night. We drank a ton of. It's really crazy because now I'll host these bottle shares, and there will be 5 or 6 guys.
And you do this a lot. It's like weekly.
Yeah, it's weekly.
Yeah.
And literally they start bringing out like the Cantillon Fufuns and the Black Tuesday. They just start bringing out the big
Whale
bombs.
Town's population.
Honestly.
You and 5 dudes.
Every single week I end up saying, well, that escalated quickly. and it does. And what's cool about it, though, is that I have several friends that do a lot of traveling. And so they bring a lot of really cool, unique beers from a lot of unique places that obviously we don't get around here. And so I kind of want to keep doing them just because they're so much fun and that you get to try a lot of different beers that you wouldn't have previously. Like last Monday, I had a share at a local growler store prior to a big share at a local brewery. That was 2 shares in one day if you're counting. And anyway, at the first share, we had Bottle Logic's Fundamental Observation, which is a spectacular $120 bottle. And then we also had Aslan's Pinkies Up, which is an 18.5, I think it's 18.5% IPA.
Ooh, contraband.
Super thick, strong beer. So you get to try a lot of beers, and that's one of the joys of bottle shares in any way, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do those a lot, man. I know I've been to a couple of them, and they're fantastic. I'll come again.
Yeah.
Monday night's tough, but
yeah, it's great.
I'll come again.
I mean, it's great. It's great to have a common bond that people can kind of sit around the table around,
I went to a Cask Ale festival.
Yeah, the Atlanta Cask Ale tasting.
Yeah, the 14th annual Atlanta Cask Ale Festival, and it was really fantastic. Oh, man, it was so fun. There were so many interesting beers. I mean, some breweries just brought either something that they can, and a few brought something that is in their annual rotation, but maybe they had set it aside in the cask for a while and put it on something that flavored it up, whether it was fruit or more hops or cocoa nibs or something like that. And then some just brought totally bonkers things that isn't part of their rotation in any way, just from one of their experimental batches or something like that. And some of these things were really solid. A lot of big, heavy beers, a lot of 10% stuff. So double IPAs and stouts, lots of stouts and porters. Some smoky ones, which was great because I like those. And then a grisette. Tasted like liquid pine. It was really fascinating. And quite a few that had they must have put habaneros right in the cask because one drag in and you were like, wow, that's spicy. Yeah. And then, a couple more in, you were like, is it hot in here?
I think there were 2 last year that did habaneros like that were really hot.
Yeah, it was really, a couple of them were kind of live. We're like, I don't think I'm going to finish this. Like, this is a very, very short pour opportunity. But, man, there were 100 or so there, and it was amazing. I had a blast. I didn't try them all, I promise you. So that was a fun day. I went out after and saw some bands, and the whole day kind of went in a direction I probably shouldn't have. But
yeah, this is the first year that I didn't go to the Cask Ale tasting, although our brewery was there with a version of one of our most popular IPAs.
Yeah.
That they triple dry hopped
and added mango.
Passion fruit.
Yeah,
they added passion fruit to it.
Yeah, it was really good.
But actually the People's Choice Award for that event, Variants Mid-Morning Stout, which is kind of like a maple breakfast stout. I actually had the opportunity to try a couple weekends ago, and man, it's a very incredibly tasty stout. So you're gonna hear about those Variant guys here soon. They're gonna be doing some cool.
Well, we will locally.
Yeah, we will. I mean, who knows? You might in
some of these things
Bose,
people like
Montana.
to trade for. So like they'll be in like Facebook traders group or something. They'll be like, "Hey, wanting to trade some of my local action."
And they do
who
bottle
wants
and
to do
crowler
stuff?
some
And
of
then
their
you get-
beers.
Yeah, you get an opportunity to. They're gonna start bottling more. So cool, man. Well, I was gonna ask you what you drink because I always kind of do that, but I guess you kind of got right into that and covered it.
Man, yeah, I drink a lot.
So let's. The first beer we had, the Color Wheel from Bearded Iris.
Bearded Iris, yes.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
I loved it. Tell me more about that beer specifically, because I want to get into that as a category. So I think we're going to have a bit of a debate here coming up.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Bearded Iris is a brewery that started out in Nashville a few years ago. They have been brewing. They've been brewing consistent IPAs now. That's pretty much what they brew on the whole. Although they just released a, they did just release a. I think they call it V Fudge Chocolate Stout, which they released here again a couple weeks ago, which is pretty tasty. But by and large, they produce IPAs, and really they do IPAs on a different level in this region in the Southeast, I would say.
You've mentioned that before.
Yeah. So they produced this lactose and blueberry beer called Color Wheel, which is a pretty interesting beer in terms of color. Obviously, it looks like a blueberry milkshake smoothie.
Yeah, it's kind of got like a maroon to blue color to it.
Yep.
And it's hazy, but I'm seeing more of these lactose IPAs, man. They're popping up everywhere.
Yeah, lactose IPAs. I know that the brewery that I work for they just released their third version of a lactose IPA today. So they've been doing it now for, I guess, 6 months. The first one was just a regular version of a milkshake IPA, and then the second version they added strawberries, and then this version they added chocolates and blueberries. And when you look at that beer, it doesn't really look like any beer that you've ever seen. Obviously, if you can imagine a big, thick, hazy IPA with blueberries and cocoa and cacao nibs, it's going to be a very dark brown. It's not very attractive, I'll be honest, but the beer does taste really good. And so it's interesting because you start to think about these beers and what they look like and what they're made of. And obviously, if you hold up that chocolate blueberry milkshake IPA to this Hefeweizen, obviously it looks completely different. And a lot of folks a lot of the old school guard in craft beer really care about what beer looks like, right?
Yeah, but they don't complain that a Hefeweizen is hazy.
No, but if
I'm just saying, I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
Yeah, but if you look at that beer, you probably wouldn't think, man, that looks like a tasty beer. I'd want to partake of, and that whole style.
Hefe?
No, the lactose IPA.
Lactose IPAs. Well, it depends on the fruit additive or any adjuncts that they have in that are affecting the color.
Yeah, so reading about the history of that whole milkshake IPA thing is pretty interesting. Apparently, the guys from Three Floyds created the first ever lactose IPA back in 2008, which is interesting because that was certainly way ahead of its time. But they released Apocalypse Cow back in 2008, adding lactose sugar to their IPA.
Right.
And then then fast forward to, I think it was 2005, I think. No, a little bit later than that, actually.
That would be before 2008.
Yeah, it was 2015 is what it was, March of 2015. The guys from Tired Hands and Omnipolo partnered up and created a milkshake IPA, what they called it, which was a lactose IPA. And apparently
it was well received.
It was not very well received. apparently, one of the head writers of Beer Advocate was quoted as saying, "Not feeling it with this brew, extremely cloudy and a mess to say the least. Milkshake beers are not a trend or acceptable with traditional or even modern style. No excuses." And of course, that pissed off the Tired Hands guys.
What a curmudgeon.
And they were like, "Screw you, we're going to make a whole line of these milkshake IPAs." And now, you can get, I've had their double strawberry, I've had mango, I've had passion fruit, I've had lychee. I've had a lot of their milkshake IPAs, and I really like them. And the thing I like about them is the body and the texture of it that lactose adds. But if you looked at that beer and you just looked at it on the surface and you listed out all the adjuncts and then you tasted it, you might ask yourself, is this beer? Could you say this is still beer?
Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I would say yes, those are beers because the alcohol is primarily derived and the sweetness is primarily derived from malt. So I think that's a beer. Now, if you're blending it, and there are other beers that have blended in juice, whether it's 25% juice or 50% juice, and some blend with, say, lemonade, then those would be beer-based cocktails.
Okay.
And while they're made with beer, and they have good beer in them, but you could say, all right, those aren't beers. Those are cocktails.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with a bottled or a canned cocktail. This isn't a new invention.
So the Answer does a whole line of these. Called the Andal, and they're kind of known as Juice, Joose, but they do 2 scoops and double cherry popsicle and 3 scoops and raspberry popsicle, and they basically take Berliner Weisses or Gosas, and then they just dump a bunch of fruit juice in it. Mm-hmm. They're not incredibly shelf stable. They're actually not. They don't ship very well either. If you're trading them, supposedly you need to ship them overnight because they're not very stable.
They're not going to like being in warm temperatures of a warehouse.
They're not. Yeah, exactly.
Well, just like juice.
They're just literally fruit juice and a base of a Berliner Weiss or a Gosa.
I mean, you go to the grocery right now, that bottle of, that jug of Minute Maid orange juice, if it's real orange juice, it's only good for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It literally has a date where if you don't drink by that date and you open the lid, you will smell something very different.
So would you say that is
where beer keeps?
Would you say that is craft beer still?
If it's blended with juice, I think it's a craft beer product. I don't think it is a beer. Like I said, it's a cocktail.
Yeah, well, I mean,
there's nothing wrong with a cocktail.
Starts off as a Gosa or Berliner Weiss, right, which is a beer, and then it just adds a bunch of juice. So you're right, it's sort of a beer cocktail.
I mean, they don't want to drink a hazy brown or a hazy red beer, right?
Yep.
They'll drink a brown ale, but just not hazy. They'll drink a red ale, but just not hazy. Nobody wants to eat brown soup, but they're happy to have orange soup, or they're happy to have, dark brown soup like a chili or something like that. It's like, don't want to get into whether chili is a soup fight. But I will say that there are old European styles that are hazy. So there's nothing new going on here. Hefeweizen is a wheat beer. It's hazy because of the wheat. Wheat is added to a lot of our favorite New England IPAs and haze bombs. So if anything, it is a hybrid of 2 acceptable styles. And in my mind, it should be acceptable.
Okay. I will agree with that. Although it is interesting when you're having a conversation about somebody and you're talking about craft beer in general, and you mentioned something like Rodenbach Alexander, for instance.
Ooh, I love that beer.
Which is one of my favorite beers and one of the best beers in the world, honestly.
And their Grand Cru, their whole line of stuff, it's all aged in wood.
But let's get down to the nuts and bolts of what Rodenbach Alexander actually is. It's just like basically a cherry juice.
It's a blend.
It's fermented cherry juice, right?
Fermented cherry juice and their sour ale, their beer.
Yeah.
Is a blend.
So, by nature, obviously, if I say, hey, I want you to try this beer, you're thinking of one thing, and Rodenbach Alexander is not going to be that thing, right? And some of these lactose IPAs will not be that thing. They will be something completely different.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree entirely. A lot of the beers that we buy off the shelf are blends, and most customers don't know it. There are a lot of beers off the shelf that are blends that it doesn't say anything about them being a blend, especially all the barrel-aged stuff from these small local breweries. A lot of those are blends because they leave it in the barrel too long, and they're like, oh, crap, this is not good. It's too woody or it's too sweet. And they'll take one that hasn't been in the barrel as long, maybe half as long, and they'll mix the two together, and they'll try it, and they'll say, okay, that's going to work. Bottle it, get it out of here. And they're not going to tell anyone. A lot of these barrel-aged sour ales are blends. Some of the even off-the-shelf IPAs, a lot of these things from these bigger breweries, they're blends too.
I think that, I think of Casey out of the Midwest. Casey, they named their company Casey. I think they named it Casey Brewing and Blending now. They named it Casey Brewing and Blending. They're in Colorado. But they actually put blending in their name.
I've seen that a couple of times pop up in the last couple of months, and that seems to make sense because that opens the window for them to be able to do things that aren't, that don't have to go to the Great Beer Festival and stand in any particular category.
Yeah. Actually, I've also heard of brewers who basically just buy wort. And
you can do that,
buy wort, and then they just put it in barrels themselves and do their blending themselves. So they
just do the blending and aging. They don't have to have any of the initial, they don't have to sparge and everything.
Right, exactly. So, but it is interesting, this whole category of lactose IPAs. You add lactose to it, which adds this creamy mouthfeel. Mm-hmm. It adds this kind of milky texture, but it's definitely not a traditional beer thing. And I wonder if this next kind of trend in these lactose IPAs and fruited IPAs is just because, either A, people are moving on from New England IPAs, or they are just kind of trying to side skirt it altogether because they either don't want to do it, or they want to, or they've done it already and they're moving on.
Well, they may not want to make an also ran. They may want to brew something that is derivative of the style, takes it in another direction, or does something creatively that is original or seems like it's closer to what they're trying to do from a brewery standpoint or from a creativity standpoint. But, when it comes to these adjuncts, the judges, what do they say here in the South? Bless their heart. They're like picking their spots, what's okay and what's not okay. Like a Hefeweizen is perfectly fine, right? Even though it doesn't even meet German laws. What is it, the Reisensblatt or whatever it's called?
Yeah,
the mouthful of something.
You can only have 3 ingredients.
Exactly.
And rice is not one of those ingredients.
But it has wheat, and wheat's not one of those ingredients, right? But there are lots of fruited cherry beers, fruited sour beers, out of, say, Belgium.
Linnemans.
Incredibly popular. Yeah, well,
Framboise.
Framboise is a whole nother ballgame.
Yep.
That apparently are perfectly acceptable. But all of a sudden, you add lactose in the stateside, and everybody's like, oh, this isn't beer. You can't pick. Adjuncts are either acceptable or they're not acceptable. You can't say, well, okay, we're going to draw a line between some adjuncts and not. I don't think anybody necessarily would complain about a rice-based beer like a Budweiser or a corn-based beer like Coors, right? If what they were doing was rich in flavor and had creativity to it, instead of it just being this lowest common denominator, all costs cut out of it, like at any expense, minimalist thing, right? That they can sell as cheap as possible. So if some craft brewery was like, here's our new rice-based beer, it's got wasabi and lactose and all these things in it, and it tasted amazing. I don't know if it's beer or not. Maybe it is. I think I'm making the argument that it is because it is a creative fermented thing that goes through the brewing process.
Right.
Right. And a grain is a grain. at the end of the day, you got to boil it and get the sugars out. You're doing the exact same thing. So I would make an argument that itself is beer, even though that isn't extremely. But if anybody does brew that out there, copyright to the whole idea, especially the wasabi part.
Copyright 2018.
2018. So I don't know. It's like they're trying to split hairs as to what adjuncts are acceptable and what aren't, and that's what drives me crazy about the whole thing.
Well, and honestly, that's part of a much bigger conversation, which is, and we read that article last month about pastry stouts and how, pastries, the article, I think it was from the Chicago Tribune, basically went on to say that pastry stouts were the beginning of the end for craft beer because, these things resembled beer in no way. And they were, just sugar bombs and diabetes. And here's what I would say about that. As somebody who works for a brewer, right? If it gets more people interested and excited about craft beer, then I'm all for it. And who gets to be the craft beer police? Like, who gets to be the people that says, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable? Because I also just read a great piece that was in Good Beer Hunting a few days ago about someone who was basically just saying, just enjoy the beer. Like, quit trying to be the police of craft beer.
Sure,
just enjoy it.
I don't want to blanket throw all BJCP judges under I'm sure there are lots of them that are wonderfully adjusted and creative and flexible and personable people, like wonderful people. But there are certainly some who would go on certain forums and lambaste anything that didn't fall into a specific criteria. And they go through a lot of training to be able to pick out things that would throw you off of a style or make something not land within reason for a style, right? So a lot of work and effort and time and money goes into that. But we've got to be able to say, to your question earlier, is this beer? We've got to be able to have a baseline. You said it was a bigger issue, what adjuncts are acceptable and what are not. I actually think it's a smaller issue. We either have to decide if adjuncts are acceptable or not. Maybe that's what Germany was trying to do, and even they failed. But I don't know, dude. Like, the idea that you can't ferment lactose and other sugars in a beer, like, people don't have a problem with honey. People don't have a problem with honey, a little bit of honey being in a beer. Everybody chasing out right now getting a $20 six-pack Hop Slam.
Yep. I want to make notice because I think it's important that while we're on this subject, in the top 5 top-rated beers on Beer Advocate, and usually Beer Advocate raters are usually a little bit more level-headed than Untapped, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
I was
actually worried about what you were going to say.
As someone who checks Untapped ratings, I would say that Beer Advocate raters are usually a lot more level-headed and usually a little bit more experienced than Untapped, based on what I see.
Let's say more thorough.
Okay. 5 of the top-rated beers in the world are adjunct beers. Number 1 is Kentucky Brunch Brand Stout, which I got to try last year. That beer is obviously a stout, barrel-aged with maple syrup and coffee. Number 3 is Hunahpu's stout, double barrel aged, which is also a stout with ancho chilies and cinnamon and cocoa. And number 4 is barrel aged Abraxas from Perennial, which is exactly like Hunahpu, ancho chilies, cinnamon,
right.
and then number 5 is Marshmallow Hanji, which is a bourbon barrel aged vanilla bean Dark Lord from Three Floyds. So 3 of the top 5 top rated beers in the world right now are adjunct beers.
Right. But it's not okay to add oats or wheat flour in order to get something hazy, or to even add fruit pectin or lactose or anything like that. All of a sudden they're like, oh, nose in the air. I'm not buying it, dude. I'm not willing to accept that argument. I will fight to the death.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah. So it is an interesting topic. I think we're going to continue to see more lactose and fruited IPAs. And
what's this new haze bomb you're throwing in my face?
This is Fall Brewing. They're out of San Diego.
Fall Brewing.
They are in a very crowded market in San Diego.
Brainwashed, triple dry hopped,
brainwashed, triple
IPA.
dry hopped IPA, and this is. It says on the can they use 6 pounds of hops per barrel of Simcoe and Citra, I believe, and then they
It's only 6.4.
then they dry hop it a couple more times. Right. So it's a big hop bomb. What's interesting
about a hop bomb? It's actually one of those ones that gets to the point of being chalky.
Yeah. One of the interesting things about this beer is obviously it's unfiltered, but this beer in no way reminds me of a West Coast IPA.
Not in any way.
And it is in San Diego.
It has some bittering to it, though. It's not a straight up zero IBU juice bomb.
It's definitely not a juice bomb, but it is definitely a hazy hop. Kind of.
I saw a funny joke. I don't remember where I saw it. Maybe it might have been a tweet that said, because someone dropped, I think it was 6 points. It might have been 5 points. One of these breweries that has points in it was basically dropped a 0 IPU triple dry hop New England IPA. And someone tweeted back basically just saying, well, at what point are we just serving vodka and orange juice?
Yeah, that's true. It's very true. You think about beers like Sam Adams Utopias. Is Sam Adams Utopias a beer? Do you know what the current ABV on that is?
I do not know. The ABV?
The alcohol really by volume.
It's really high, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like
40% or something like that. It's more like a spirit.
Yeah, it's a $200 bottle, and I think currently it's somewhere around 29%.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's spirit level.
Yeah.
So now we're going to start talking about beer and proof.
Yeah, that's the next thing. So obviously, is that a beer? Well, it started out as a beer, right?
Is barley wine beer?
Yeah, I would say so.
So I can't see why that wouldn't be a beer. It's essentially what that is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 29%. So, obviously 120 minute is a beer.
It's 18.
Yeah, it's 18.
There are several 18%.
The beer that I had last week from Aslan, Pinky's Up, is like 18.5%.
I mean, whether or not something's beer, certainly, as we just went on about for about 15 minutes, isn't related to the ABV.
Right. So again, I go back to for me.
But it might be the SRMs.
Does it get people more interested in or
do they come to the brewery to check
beer?
it out? Do they grab it in the bottle shop to check it out and then love it or hate it and then decide whether or not they want to buy something from that brewery again, maybe even your flagship?
Yep.
Yeah. Next time they want to grab a 12er for, going to the party in the park, going to the beach. Maybe, while these guys were doing crazy stuff, this flagship IPA they do must be pretty solid.
Yep. I agree.
Right? You gotta push the limits. You gotta have a ceiling. Like these things, they don't even necessarily have to sell, but they create a brand perception in the marketplace about creativity and quality, and they raise your price point, the perception of your price points, and that moves other beer.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Plain and simple, it does. Basic branding. So is it beer?
Yes.
Got you. I'm glad I was able to win that because I lose most of our arguments because you're smart.
It's all right. We like to talk.
So do you want to talk industry news? And some of this I feel like it's a little out of our wheelhouse, but I think people have come to expect it.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously we heard the news about Smutty Nose going to auction. Green Flash is kind of consolidating its operations and
different stories though. Like one guy wants to walk away from the game, and the other one, that's Smutty Nose. Green Flash, I mean, they're just struggling to do anything creative. They spread themselves really thin. They probably hate their margins, and they're like, "Crap, let's pull out of half of the states we're in, and let's focus on our product again."
Yeah.
I think for Green Flash, I think it's a really good thing. It hurts, and you hate to see, 15% of their staff get laid off? That absolutely sucks. But from a product standpoint, a creativity standpoint, I have to think that it's going to be a net positive.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder, like as we move more and more hyper-local, I wonder more and more about West Coast breweries that have, opening up East Coast operations or, Guinness opening up a U.S. operation. I wonder what the success of those will be as we move to a more hyper-local craft beer kind of culture, right?
Right. Have you tried any of those other new Guinness flavors?
I have not.
Okay. Let's circle back.
Yeah, we should do that.
I'm not putting any words in your head.
Maybe
I'm not going to say anything about it.
Maybe next time we'll try some.
We can maybe meet on that separately.
Yeah.
We'll table that discussion.
Yeah, let's do that.
As they say. Well, the idea of consolidation, to change the subject slightly, but stick with industry news type banner here would be, we've talked and harped on this to great extent over the last, say, 8 episodes. Like on several of them, we've piped in and said, we hate this idea, this other idea, we're going to wait and see. Some of it's based on the brewery, some of it's based on who bought the brewery. We didn't jump up and down too bad with the deal between, like, say, what was it, like Unibrow and Brooklyn and what's the other one? 21st Amendment, when they kind of got bought up by another company, and we didn't really jump up and down too hard when Constellation Brands.
Funky Buddha.
Yeah, I paused because I was like, wait, everybody hated the Ballast Point buy, but nobody really complained too much about the Funky Buddha buy. And it would just dawn on me that dichotomy was existing.
I have friends that won't buy Funky Buddha now. I myself will keep purchasing it as long as the quality stays there, because I view Constellation and their practices different than AB InBev, obviously.
And then you got deals like the Cigar City and Oscar Blues,
correct?
Which are like, hey, let's just collaborate and create. Well, they created a like a parent company, like a holding company, right? And then there's another brewery involved in that too. It's not coming to my mind, but there's another one.
Oscar Blues, Cigar City, and I can't think of it.
There's a third brewery. You look that up on the Google while I keep, my righteous indignation. But, we were talking earlier, and this makes some sense for local breweries. It even makes sense for some of the bigger breweries, maybe, to even make an even bigger brewery and get closer to, like, say, Sam Adams size.
Yeah,
because it's like you got to be on either end of the spectrum. The guys getting choked out are the ones too big to really do innovation because they can't make enough or move enough of something. They're really tied to the flagship. So all these mid-size and large regional breweries are the ones getting choked out in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking about this with another. I was talking about this with our owners and another local brewery, and this was just me talking.
I just want a discllaimer. You don't have to say anything.
No, not say it. No, I was just
yourself in trouble.
No, I just said, as a consumer, right? Because I'm a craft beer consumer. I also work for a brewery, but as a consumer, one of the trends that I see is obviously overall market consolidation. And I can look at the coffee industry to see kind of what will take place, because what has taken place in the specialty coffee industry, of which I was in for 16 and a half years, is almost identical to what's taking place in the craft beer industry. Large major coffee roasters like Intelligentsia and Stumptown and a lot of these roasters have been bought by JAB Holdings, which owns Pete's and Caribou, and they're getting bought and consolidating left and right, and it's obviously it's mirroring in craft beer, and they're very similar in their industries and what they do. So I can look and see what's happening in the specialty coffee industry and say I can see that happening in the craft beer industry, and that is consolidation. Now, if you take consolidation to its next level, if you take consolidation to the point, past the point of major consolidation, which is where a brewer in California buys a brewer in Florida, or a brewery, in Oregon buys a brewery in Maine, for instance, Portland to Portland. That would be cool in theory, wouldn't it?
Cool. Made in Portland.
Exactly.
I don't know which one.
Yeah, exactly. Made in Portland. But what you'll see next is you will see a local consolidation. You will see a consolidation of local breweries who decide to work together so that they can be more successful, that they can stay long term, because you're starting to see some of these mid-level breweries like Sierra Nevada, New Belgium, and Stone, some of these brewers who have extended themselves out maybe a little too far. Oscar Blues, you're starting to see them kind of, have some pressures, right? And as we move hyper-local, you're going to continue to see that, because why would somebody buy beer from a brewer in Asheville that's owned by a brewer in Colorado when they can buy from a brewer in Asheville that's from Asheville?
Right.
You will see consolidation on a local scale where local brewers in a region or area, say, for instance, Portland, Oregon, for instance, you will see Portland, Oregon brewers collaborating and coming together to consolidate as one business. Now, I believe that they would retain their identities, because their identities are the brand that they created.
The purchasing would be done through a holding company, a different entity from a legal standpoint.
Right.
But they could consolidate a percentage of their income, or however they want to set the deal up, to create stronger purchasing power.
Yep.
And then divvy up, equal shares of whatever they.
Yeah. Think about hop contracts, grains,
absolutely,
all these things. They're made more efficient financially. It's more financially stable long term, and I believe that you'll see that. Just like you're seeing more local collaborations. I just saw a new local collaboration today between Wrecking Bar, which is a brew pub here in Atlanta,
pub, yeah.
and Red Brick, which is Atlanta's oldest brewery. And
they're finally ratcheting it back up, getting back in the game.
Yeah, so I believe that is something that we will see in the craft beer industry as I don't want to say the bubble pops, but you're starting to see a lot of that stress and a lot of that pressure now, because so many people opened up new breweries. And obviously,
local breweries are not going to struggle from the same stress, right? They just do not. They're not affected at a national level by a lot of these problems. They just have to pay the highest rates when they buy anything, right? Because they can't make enough beer to affect anything, and they can't make enough money to really change their fortune without doing something like what you're talking about.
Yep.
But you've got these big companies in the middle, these really big breweries that are really the mid-sized breweries, and they can buy a lot of ingredients, but they can't make money unless they're selling 500,000 barrels of something, which makes experimentation really hard. It makes market testing. They're very formalized in how they roll this stuff out. We just saw the first Haze IPA from New Belgium.
Yep.
Just dropped.
Didn't
last
Sierra
week.
Nevada do one as well?
Sierra Nevada just did one. I think theirs dropped about a month ago. But even still, they're a year to a year and a half behind the game. Everybody's moving on to fruited lactose bombs, IPA bombs, right? It's like the game is moving out faster than they can adapt to it, whereas smaller breweries could maintain that speed and increase their buying power and in turn their margins, I think, if they were to do some of the consolidation the way you're talking about.
Yeah.
And maintain their identities.
Yep.
Which is, it's essentially what Anheuser-Busch is doing by buying up all these bigger, trendy craft breweries, But these small breweries are not luring up small businesses and driving costs of different things in unfortunate directions, and basically taking a big fat crap on the whole
on everything
beer pie.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that a good picture? I don't know if that was a good picture.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an emoji.
Is it an emoji?
Crap emoji.
How come there's no angry face turd emoji?
I don't know.
These are the questions that need to be answered, okay? And I think a beer podcast is the exact people that have this
screw is it
conversation.
beer. Let's talk about that.
Is it an emoji?
Yes. Yes, it is.
All right, one more. We can after party.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're 45 minutes in.
Bam.
I can't see in the cooler.
Go with a classic.
That's a classic?
Yeah. This is
from your local heroes.
Yeah.
Your local buddies. Monday Night
Brewing. This is a cinnamon cocoa drafty kilt.
They're big on the internet right now.
They are.
Cinnamon cocoa drafty kilt. The drafty kilt's a Scotch ale. Right? Yep. You got the
Scotch ale. They were interesting in a sense that one of the first two beers that they came to market with was a Scotch ale, which is really unique, actually.
It was unique because it's a very malty beer. You know, being you all right?
Yeah, I just realized one of the light bulb was out.
Carry on. See, this is the riveting information people want to hear. This is what they want.
Oh, look, there's a squirrel. Yeah, this is cinnamon cocoa drafty kilt.
People don't know because he's been incredibly quiet, but my brother Timothy is here.
Yeah. Tim's over there drinking in the corner.
He's been sampling some of the beers that we've opened, and he's going to help me make our sound better.
Did not think I would like this.
This?
The cinnamon cocoa.
Cinnamon cocoa. It's good.
Man, I love this beer. Reminds me of like a Cocoa Pebbles.
It's really good. He's not usually into like the spicy. Like he hates Christmas beers. He hates all of the. He doesn't like anything like cinnamon, nutmeg. Usually, it could be too much.
Mm. Yeah, I'm a fan of this.
We'll see what he says when he's 5
I'm a
drinks
big
in.
fan.
So we'll get him on the show one time. We'll give him a mic.
Yeah, let's do it.
He's bashful, but we'll get him there. So all right, let's just after party for a couple of minutes.
After party.
This could be brief. We can let the people get on with their day, their morning.
I got a new 10-gallon stock pot for Christmas. My in-laws gave me a couple of Amazon gift cards, so I bought myself a 10-gallon stainless
Bayou
Bayou Classic stock pot.
What? Nice one.
Who is ready to brew another batch of beer? This guy.
I thought you did the
Pico Brew.
The Pico Brew. You
Yes,
get those little nano batches.
But I can't do what I want to do. I can't do the beer I want to do on the Pico Brew.
You could do the little cute beers in that, meow.
I can't do a coconut pineapple milkshake IPA.
No. And you can't do 7 gallons of it.
That's right. No, and that's what I'm doing.
What?
I'm doing a coconut pineapple milkshake IPA. Speaking of lactose milkshake IPAs.
Wicked.
Yeah, I think it'll be ready for spring. And in my opinion, man, it sounds incredible, doesn't it?
You can send me some.
You'll be here.
I'll probably have a new address.
Okay.
I have a new address. I'm going to move.
Yeah?
I'm going to contract on it.
Pina colada.
I'm on a contract
exactly.
on a new house.
And I like pina coladas and standing out in the rain. You're under contract with a new house.
Yeah, contract, new house.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, it happened very quickly.
Apparently.
As you say, that escalated quickly.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah. I hold no illusions that I'm driving this bus that is my life.
Yeah.
Maybe I have one hand on one of the brakes. I don't know. I'm struggling with a metaphor, but I would say that it's something that we've been looking forward to for a while. So,
how
not far from where I am now. A couple miles. Not far from where I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a nice neighborhood, a little quiet. Nice house, classic.
Yeah.
It's a big square block made of bricks.
You like the classic houses.
You know, do what I can.
You're a classic guy.
Keep it real.
Yeah. And work's going well?
Work's always going well. You know, it's one thing you can count on is they need you there every day. And they're full of nice people. And when you show up, you have a nice time.
Yeah.
So can't bat an eye at that.
Yeah.
It's good folks. We're doing some good work. And, it's the beginning of the year and everybody's always got big plans. Grand ideas. You know, kick the year off with a bang. There's all this new stuff you want to do from a brand perspective and from a promotional perspective. You start planning all the conferences and I got to design all this stuff, trade show booths for these really big conferences and, branding updates. Everybody always wants a new website. That's always a new thing.
Yeah.
Website always feels old. I don't know if they are old. They say they're old. And I say, is it old or does it just feel old?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's like the opposite of a shirt. Like as a shirt gets older, you're like, you know what? This shirt is awesome. This is now my favorite shirt. But no websites. No, not brands.
No. Yeah,
as soon as it starts feeling old, they're like,
you're like, do the buttons still work?
Yeah.
When you click on them, do they still take you somewhere?
They still do
Then
everything.
They're fine.
Yeah, they still do everything, but they're like, oh, I think maybe it doesn't represent who I am now. And I'm like, just because you ate something different for breakfast, bro,
just because you saw
doesn't make everyone else's reality and perception of you change.
Yeah, exactly.
But what do I know?
I mean,
I push the pixels around. Push the pixels around.
Pixel pusher.
Yeah, I'm the pixel pusher. And Pixel Man,
I'm a word pusher.
where you going? Damn, tough crowd.
Yeah.
So what else? What do you got? You done?
Yeah, I'm done.
You feeling it?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm bacheloring all week while my wife
Every
is in
time
New
I
York
think
City.
we're wrapping up, see, there you go. So you're batching it this week.
I'm batching this week.
Man, that is just a disaster.
Yeah. So
Is it?
So
You just basically
I'm eating a lot of hot dogs
hot dogs
and
eating Cheetos in his underwear, watching Netflix and playing video games.
yeah,
And
working and
drinking beer.
remembering to take the dogs out.
That's a tough one.
I'm remembering to take the dogs out and
Mine will let me know. She just stares at you.
yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is getting uncomfortable. Oh. You need to pee. Got it.
Yeah, got it.
It takes me like an
wonder why
extra
you're sitting
2
there
whole
looking at me.
5 minutes. It takes me minutes to figure out what she's staring at me for. And then I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because listen, when you're a clown, you're a clown. So, well, cool. Thanks for coming.
That's it. Thanks for being here.
We got
Thanks
some
for
good
joining
beverages.
us, Tim. Thanks for joining us, Frosty.
Tim, audio
All
engineer, is
beverages.
going to up our game. Everybody reach out and let me know if we sound better this time.
Yeah. If you had any of these beers, tell us what you think about them.
And if you want to trade, let's just open up trade lines.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah, trade with us.
Like, if there's anything that we do locally that you can't get that we're talking about and you want to, make a swap for that,
Yeah, for sure.
just drop us a line on any of the socials and we'll make that happen.
Yeah.
We will make it happen.
I got these cans of Color Wheel in today, actually.
Really?
Yep. This was released last week. I got them in today.
That was a really good beer.
Really?
Yeah, it's
it
a
was
really good beer. A blueberry lactose IPA. Who'd have thunk?
I mean, it was really good. I would say that one was good. The fall
Brainwash.
The fall's brainwash is really fantastic too. Those were the standouts. But
I mean,
everything we
You think about it. They've got to be.
It's really good.
They've got to really be on their game in San Diego to be open.
Yeah, that's a tough market.
That's a tough market. There's a lot of amazing craft beer in that market. If you're not really, really good, you're really, really closed.
Isn't that why Green Flash is consolidating?
Because of Paul's Brewing?
Green Flash is based in San Diego, aren't they?
I don't know. I know they're California, San Luis Obispo.
Well, everything in California is in San Diego, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they're in San Diego.
In your face! Yeah.
Yeah, they are in San Diego.
All right, well, I'm going to hit the stop record button. Ready?
Good work.
Go Pats. If you have a question or something you would like us to discuss, drop us an email, sip@lastbeershow.com, or hit us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at The Last Beer Show. A reminder that we are proud members of the ABV Network. Go to abvnetwork.com to see all the amazing podcasts, or go to your podcast app of choice, search for something like The Last Beer Show, The Firewater Review, The Bourbon Daily, among others. And if you really want to have a good time, go to Instagram and follow the hashtag ABV Network Crew. There's always all kinds of stuff happening on there, and it's a lot of fun. So anyway, thanks for listening. Peace. Oh, wait. One more thing. Please do us a solid and go to iTunes, rate the show. We would be extremely grateful. Thank you very much. Thanks again for listening.